If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The story starts with a spark that no one in the football community expected, a single statement that spread like wildfire across locker rooms, media circles, and fan discussions everywhere. Joel BITONIO, one of the most respected and battle-tested offensive linemen in the league, opened his mouth in an interview and let out a sentence that instantly turned into a headline. But it wasn't just any sentence. It was a bomb aimed right at SHEDEUR Sanders, the young quarterback with the famous last name, the flashy presence, and the weight of his father's legacy on his shoulders. When a veteran like BITONIO speaks, the football world listens, because he is not someone who wastes words or tosses casual shade without intention. The moment the words left his mouth, it was as if the NFL rumor mill had been injected with pure adrenaline. Fans scrambled to replay the clip, journalists paused to rewrite their takes, and analysts leaned in, sensing that this wasn't just a casual critique, but something deeper, sharper, maybe even personal. The shock came not only from the fact that BITONIO criticized SHEDEUR, but from the tone, the bluntness, the lack of hesitation, as though he had been holding it in for a long time and finally decided the world needed to hear it now. For years, the narrative surrounding SHEDEUR Sanders has been wrapped in a mixture of hype and skepticism. On one hand, he's the son of Deion Sanders, a living legend, a Hall of Famer who revolutionized cornerback play and brought unmatched charisma to the game. On the other, SHEDEUR is still carving his own path, trying to prove that his name alone isn't what gives him a place under the spotlight. That contrast has made every step of his journey magnified, scrutinized, and sometimes unfairly judged. So when Joel BITONIO decided to weigh in with such a powerful critique, the timing felt explosive. It's one thing when media personalities question SHEDEUR's abilities or maturity. It's another when an established veteran who has bled for this game decides to speak out. It instantly raised questions. Was BITONIO speaking from personal experience, something that happened on the field or behind closed doors? Was he frustrated by the culture of hype around younger players who haven't yet delivered at the highest level? Or was it simply raw honesty, the kind of brutal assessment that only a player with nothing to lose would dare to share? Whatever the reason, it set off waves of conversation across social media and sports talk shows. The wording of BITONIO's statement was especially striking. According to insiders who were close to the situation, he didn't sugarcoat it, didn't add qualifiers like he's young or he still has time. Instead, he cut straight to the point with a tone that was described as dismissive, almost like he was tearing down the foundation of SHEDEUR's reputation in one breath. This wasn't constructive criticism, it was a slap across the face, a reality check meant to sting. Fans who adore SHEDEUR were outraged, calling BITONIO bitter, jealous, or simply out of line. Others, however, applauded the honesty, claiming that it takes guts to say what many may be thinking behind the scenes. The polarity of reactions made the moment even bigger, because in today's sports culture, controversy feeds the machine like nothing else. The fact that a veteran chose to challenge the narrative around one of the most talked about young players created an irresistible drama. Podcasts exploded with takes, Twitter feeds caught fire, and YouTube channels turned the clip into endless commentary. It wasn't just about the words themselves. It was about the weight those words carried, and the fact that they seemed to echo a sentiment some were too afraid to express publicly. BITONIO's reputation makes the story even harder to dismiss. This is not a loudmouth rookie or a media-seeking personality. This is a player known for toughness, discipline, and consistency. He has faced countless defensive monsters, lined up week after week in the trenches, and earned respect across the league for doing the dirty work few outside the locker room fully appreciate. That's why his criticism of SHEDEUR carried such force. It's not just about what was said, it's about who said it. When a veteran who has nothing to prove and no agenda suddenly drops a bomb, people perk up and start connecting dots. Maybe he's seen something in SHEDEUR's game that others overlook. Maybe he's unimpressed by the highlight reels and tired of hearing constant praise for someone who hasn't yet delivered in the NFL. Or maybe, just maybe, it reflects a deeper tension between old-school grinders who earned respect the hard way and new generation stars who come with fame, social media clout, and built-in fan bases before they've even taken a snap against the best in the world. That old versus new clash has been simmering quietly, and BITONIO's statement may have been the match that lit the fire. Meanwhile, SHEDEUR Sanders himself hasn't backed down from criticism in the past. He's shown a mix of confidence, swagger, and defiance, qualities that some admire and others despise. Every interview he gives, every post he makes, seems to split opinions down the middle. That's why BITONIO's comments are so fascinating, because they challenge SHEDEUR in a way that can't just be brushed aside as haters talking. Coming from a respected veteran, the criticism demands attention. Will SHEDEUR respond with the same fire, defending his name and using it as fuel to elevate his game? Or will he ignore it, pretending it doesn't bother him while quietly stewing on the inside? The psychology of young athletes under public fire is complex, and this moment could reveal a lot about SHEDEUR's true character. Is he prepared to silence doubters on the field, or will the weight of expectations combined with public shots from veterans start to chip away at his confidence? This is where the drama of sports becomes so much bigger than stats and scores. It becomes about pride, reputation, and legacy. Fans are now left to speculate endlessly, dissecting every possible angle of BITONIO's critique. Some wonder if it was triggered by something SHEDEUR said or did, maybe even an encounter we haven't heard about yet. Others think it was simply a veteran being brutally honest about a player he sees as overhyped. Either way, it's clear that this single statement has shifted the conversation around SHEDEUR Sanders in a way that few other comments could. What makes it so intriguing is the raw unpredictability of what comes next. Will this ignite a feud that lasts for months, feeding headlines every time their names come up? Will SHEDEUR take the challenge personally and use it as motivation to prove his doubters wrong? Or will it linger as a dark cloud over his narrative, fueling even more criticism when he makes mistakes? The fact that all these questions are floating around shows just how powerful words can be when they come from the right source. And right now, Joel BITONIO's words are echoing loudly in the world of football, with no signs of fading anytime soon. The ripple effect of BITONIO's remarks has gone far beyond a simple critique. It has transformed into a cultural conversation about respect, hierarchy, and how young athletes are introduced into the brutal ecosystem of professional football. In the past, rookies were expected to pay dues, stay quiet, and earn respect through sweat and sacrifice before they could command headlines. But SHEDEUR Sanders arrived in a different era, one where his name carried built-in buzz, his highlights were shared across platforms, and his charisma turned him into a star before his professional career even truly began. That clash between tradition and modernity lies at the heart of why BITONIO's statement felt so sharp. It wasn't just about SHEDEUR's skill set or decision-making on the field. It was about the culture that surrounds him, a culture that many veterans view with skepticism. For old-school warriors like BITONIO, who have endured seasons of punishing battles to gain credibility, watching a young player crowned a celebrity before proving himself at the top level can feel like an insult. That frustration bubbled to the surface in his words, making the critique resonate with those who share the same doubts, even if they lack the courage to say them publicly. Of course, SHEDEUR's supporters argue that this criticism is not only unfair, but also hypocritical. They point out that football is evolving, that the modern athlete must embrace media, branding, and image as much as raw performance, because the game today is as much entertainment as it is competition. In their eyes, SHEDEUR represents the new generation perfectly, confident, outspoken, polished on social platforms, and unafraid to carry himself with swagger. Why should he be penalized for leveraging opportunities that didn't exist for players 20 years ago? To them, BITONIO's remarks sounded like bitterness disguised as honesty, the voice of an older player unwilling to accept that the rules of the spotlight have changed forever. They highlight SHEDEUR's poise, his flashes of brilliance under pressure, and the unique weight of expectations he bears simply by being Deion Sanders' son. They argue that no ordinary rookie has faced the scrutiny SHEDEUR endures daily, and that surviving under that microscope already speaks volumes about his resilience. From this perspective, BITONIO's words say more about the insecurities of veterans than about SHEDEUR's actual performance. The debate rages on, not only about who is right, but about what kind of player and what kind of personality the NFL should celebrate. Yet the truth may lie somewhere between the extremes, and that's what makes this rumor so fascinating. Perhaps BITONIO's blunt words were not meant to destroy SHEDEUR, but to challenge him, to push him past the noise and into a level of performance that silences doubters completely. After all, great players are often forged in the fires of criticism, shaped by the doubts of others into competitors who refuse to back down. If SHEDEUR is as mentally strong as his fans believe, this moment could become the turning point in his journey, the exact spark that drives him to elevate his game and prove not only his father's legacy, but his own. On the other hand, the weight of constant chatter, now amplified by respected veterans, could also crush a young quarterback's confidence, making every mistake feel magnified and every misstep feed into the narrative of being overhyped. That balance, whether he bends under the pressure or grows stronger because of it, is the story to watch. BITONIO may have intended his words as a test, consciously or not, and now the entire football community is waiting to see how SHEDEUR responds to the challenge. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Behind the scenes, whispers suggest that BITONIO's comments weren't spontaneous at all, but may have been fueled by quiet frustration that has been simmering among veterans for a while. There are rumors that certain locker rooms around the league have grown tired of hearing about SHEDEUR before he has even stepped onto the biggest stage. Stories circulate of eye rolls during highlight packages, of sideline conversations where his name sparks annoyance rather than admiration. If those whispers are true, BITONIO's statement may not be an isolated opinion but the public face of a larger sentiment within the league. That would explain the conviction in his voice, the lack of hesitation. In that case, SHEDEUR isn't just battling the pressure of his name. He's battling a perception war within the very fraternity he's trying to join. And perception in the NFL can be just as brutal as performance. Once veterans decide that a player hasn't earned his hype, it becomes a shadow that follows him into every huddle, every locker room, every game. Whether fair or not, reputations stick, and BITONIO's critique may have planted seeds that will grow in unpredictable ways as SHEDEUR takes his first steps into the league. Meanwhile, Deion Sanders' presence looms large over the entire narrative, because everything connected to SHEDEUR inevitably circles back to his father. Primetime has always been larger than life, outspoken, confident, and unapologetically flashy. That energy has poured into SHEDEUR's career from the beginning, shaping not only his opportunities, but also the way the public perceives him. For some, that's a gift, a mentor like no other, a father who has paved the path and taught him how to thrive under pressure. For others, it's a curse, a constant comparison that makes it impossible for SHEDEUR to be judged on his own merits. BITONIO's critique didn't mention Deion, but the shadow of his influence is impossible to ignore. Was Joel really just criticizing SHEDEUR, or was he, in some way, pushing back against the entire Sanders brand that has dominated headlines over the past 2 years? The intertwining of family, fame, and football creates a storyline that feels more like a saga than a simple player evaluation. The fact that SHEDEUR must navigate this complex web while trying to carve out his own identity only adds to the intrigue. And BITONIO's bombshell comment just poured gasoline on an already blazing fire. In the end, the truth about this situation may not reveal itself for months, maybe even years. Rumors have a way of growing, mutating, and feeding on every development that follows. If SHEDEUR starts strong, the narrative will quickly flip. BITONIO will be painted as the veteran who underestimated the next big thing, the man whose critique became the motivation for a rising star's breakthrough. If SHEDEUR struggles, however, every interception, every sack, every missed read will be tied back to BITONIO's words, as if the veteran had called it before anyone else dared to. That's the beauty and the brutality of sports rumors. They aren't just stories. They're seeds planted in the minds of fans and players alike, shaping how we interpret every moment that comes next. Right now, the football world is hanging on this particular seed, waiting to see what grows from it. And whether you love SHEDEUR Sanders or doubt him, you can't deny that Joel BITONIO's comment has made his journey even more compelling. Because in this game, sometimes it isn't just touchdowns or tackles that define a career. It's the words spoken in the heat of the moment, words that echo far louder than anyone could have imagined. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!